Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Donald Trump has sworn in as the 47th President of United States of America, and this is his second term after 2021. This term has, of course, sparked a lot of speculation across the globe. And when we talk about his ambitious plans, this includes changes in taxation, education, and foreign policy. What will be the impacts of Donald Trump's policies across the globe? We will be talking about in today's program. His policies, such as imposing tariffs and, of course, pressuring China, will be detrimental for the global economy and international relations. In today's program, we will be delving into Trump 2.0. What his ambitious plans mean for United States and for the world, and what are opportunities and challenges for countries like Pakistan and other, of course, developing nations. And of course, when we talk about the conflicts across the globe, we'll be talking about that as well. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Dr. Baqir Malik, who is International Relations Analyst. Welcome to the program. We are joined online by Dr. Shazia Chema, who is IR analyst. Welcome to the program. And we are also joined by Mr. Baluch, who is former ambassador. Welcome to the program. Dr. Baqir Malik, let me start with you. Of course, when we talk about Trump 2.0, how do you look at his ambitious plans? Of course, he has said that he will be on his very first day. He has promised a lot of changes. So what are your expectations?
I think if we summarize his plan about this during this his 2.0 presidency, he has a 5 different domestic challenges, and you can say the 5 different international. First one is that it's a America First doctrine. Second is the basically economic reform. Third one is the immigration reforms. And fourth one is the health reforms. So these are some domestic challenges or ambitions, his ambitious plan about that, how to handle these one. On a global level, one of the most important is that maybe the America isolationist policy. I mean, reduce the, and then there is a reduce the international agreement. Third is the most important is the Middle East dynamics, and so these are some basically people. And fourth is the most important, that is the economic trade, or his protectionist policies like this. So on a domestic front, what he is basically, if you just compare his electoral campaign, all of his electoral campaign based on the America First doctrine.
Yes,
that is basically how to basically protect the American economy, protect the American sovereignty, strengthen the American security.
And then, but at the same time, Dr. Baqir, what are going to be the implications of this America First doctrine of Trump on the global order? And also within US, there are a lot of concerns. Former ambassador Mr. Baluch, what's your take on this, especially when we talk about Donald Trump's aggressive plans and aggressive statements, where he said that he's going to be making a head spin from his first day in office by issuing executive orders? What are your expectations since he has now sworn in office?
Thank you. It's very interesting, actually, moment in history as we see Mr. Donald Trump to take over as the 47th president of the US. He was the 45th. He lost a term, and he's the second president in the history of the US to have one second term after losing a subsequent a term before. So I think that shows his tenacity, political, psychological, and his personal. So I think one should give due to him. Also, that he also is some kind of a very different school of thought, political school of thought, if you will. And he kind of represents an entire changed leadership style, its messaging, And also, I think he is kind of product of what the kind of social era that we all exist today. The very fact that he's supported by those techno barons, those billionaires, is yet another dimension of his re-election. Uh, and also that as we see that the traditional politicians could not even come up to, although the Republican Party is as old as the Democratic Party, but none of the old guard in the Republican Party dared to even contest him while the party was electing. So he was in a way unanimously nominated as the presidential candidate from the Republican Party. That again shows that a new kind of a culture, political culture within the parties has also emerged, where
Right. Right,
so
and of course, Mr. G.R. Baluch, very significant points you have raised to, and I want your input further on that, like you alluded to, the tenacity of Donald Trump. And of course, also you said that there is a new type of leadership or political culture that we are witnessing in the United States with regards to, of course, the democratic values. And also, you mentioned about what is called as the Geek Cheek Boys Club. Of course, when we talk about all these aspects, and also we cannot forget that this is the first US president in history that has criminal charges. So how all these factors are going to be impacting next 4 years?
the impact is yet to be seen as the world, like Trump's world unfolds. So I think there is it's too early to predict. One, also that as we know that unpredictability and Trump has made it as his trademark, which can be a strength, which can be a weakness. So I think it will be not possible to precisely predict. There will be some departure from his electoral rhetoric, in my view. For example, he said that within 24 hours I'll be able to stop the Ukraine war, while it did not happen. Now, when you hear his last interview that I heard, that yeah, it might take six months or more. But yes, he did deliver on Gaza, which was doable. So I think his strong man style could deliver if he is on a positive agenda, if he really wants to make an impact in history, whether he has a historical perspective, which probably would have it. I mean, some people say no, he does not have a sense of history and of his legacy. He lives day to day. Yes, he is a transactional person, but definitely, unless he has a bigger picture, he won't. So I will not be surprised. It is just my hunch that probably he's aiming at the next Nobel Prize, and he would claim it if he's able.
Right.
He is successfully
Mr.
in
Jay
that.
Baloch will be coming back to, of course, this important aspect, that is the transactional foreign policy aspect of Donald Trump. But Dr. Shazia, when we look at Donald Trump's ambitious plans that are, of course, for internal policies as well as for foreign policies of US, how will Donald Trump's Republican-dominated of course, Congress, in your opinion, is going to be impacting those decisions?
Before answering that, we must keep in mind that Donald Trump is presiding on a state of chaos. Like it's a total state of chaos, externally and internally. And Donald Trump is presiding on that. And Emmanuel Todd, like a French sociologist, has rightfully said that the main job of Donald Trump would be to manage the defeat of America in Ukraine. So by keeping that in mind, although he has the majority in Senate, but we can never forget the deep state. And although he has all his nominees he has chosen from the deep state, so but But we should keep that in mind that deep state is not letting him do whatever he wants to do. He's going to have the same problem which he had in his first term with John Bolton and all the people around him. Although he has all his nominees this time, those who he can trust, who are Trump sympathizer, Trump supporters, his loyalists, but even then they are from the deep state, and that is the reality he has to face. So his ambitious plans from making Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, to annexing Greenland, to annexing Canada in America, and all these things, and also managing the defeat in Ukraine. All these ambitious plans needs time, and they cannot be, as Mr. Ambassador was saying, that he said that he is going to solve all these problems in just one phone call. These problems cannot be solved in single phone call.
Right. Dr. Shazia, I'm trying to understand here that on one hand, Donald Trump is saying America first, but at the other hand, we are also witnessing these expansionist policies or statements from Donald Trump that is regarding making Canada a 51st state of US, as well as, of course, like you mentioned about Greenland, which is autonomous territory of Denmark. So how these parallels are going to be, go together?
We have to keep in mind that after Vietnam defeat, like that humiliated defeat in America, there was a term used, Vietnam syndrome, and which gave birth to neocons and neoliberals, neoconservatives and neoliberals, and their agenda, as we see the think tanks like New American Century and Woodrow Wilson, all these think tanks, they gave birth to unipolarity, America first, America exceptionalism. This time they have to manage the Ukraine syndrome, and Donald Trump is moving toward from unipolarity to multipolarity. And in multipolarity, he somehow trying to sail around the deep state, his America First policy, and his own vision of America in the near future, and that is accepting that he is not the only big dog in the street. There are other powers emerging like China and Russia, and America has to accept it and accept it gracefully. So in that matter, he is trying to navigate in his own backyard, like in Americas, in Greenland, in Canada. So he is trying to create sphere of interest instead of sphere of influence. So instead of clashing directly to Russia and China as a power match, he is trying to create his own sphere of interest where he can get benefit and where he can get resources which now Europe cannot provide. Europe is already itself crumbling. So he needs resources to make America great again.
Right,
and he is
right.
giving
And
this.
which, of course, which US at this point in time, realistically speaking, US is not able to do. Let me take Dr. Baqir's point of view on this. Dr. Baqir, how realistic are these statements in terms of implementation by Donald Trump, where he's suggesting to annex Greenland and also making Canada its 51st state? And also, what does it suggest about global vision of Donald Trump or foreign policy that he's going to be pursuing in this term?
You know, Trump personality is that he is a more action-oriented leader. So as you are talking about that, he wanted to the Canada as a 51 states, and secondly the Greenland. Actually, it's not his policy of expansionist. It's basically just want to pressurize Canada on one side, that if we are paying a $200 billion annually, what you are paying us for this.
But
So it's just
isn't this going to be angering, 70 plus years old NATO alliance?
no, actually, what is America's first doctrine is that it's not like that he want to isolate America from the other alliances or like that, but actually said if America is paying something, you need to contribute. It's not that it's a sole responsibility of the America, America will pay like this. So his policy is basically that, policy is just that
Transactional, short-term goals.
like exactly. It's not like that a policy, for example, if NATO alliance is working under the leadership of the United States, and United States is the major contributor to paying like this. According to this alliance, America is basically provide the security to all NATO countries. So what he is expecting that you need to expand the budget. It's not only that, because what he is saying that strengthen the American security and also protect the sovereignty. So on the Canadian side, what he is trying to like that, if I have some immigration reforms policy, it's not only a Mexico, but also we have another front that is from the Canada. So from this Greenland, he is also again, you can say, the pressurizing the NATO country that you need to contribute if you want to maintain these alliances like this. So his policy is like a more actionable, action-oriented policy. It's not like working like a politician or other inspirational leaders, American leader that they are playing the words like this. So he uses a very simple language, direct language, and he directly
like a
addressed to
businessman.
Exactly. That's why this is the problem. Why American, elite class or educated class don't like the Trump is because he is not a political leader. He is actually a businessman. So his action, his speeches, his
But
tune is like a
don't you think
businessman.
that inadvertently his statements have angered NATO allies of US?
I don't think so. There may be some major shift that NATO alliance. Yes, but there is an uncertainty in a foreign policy. But this uncertainty in foreign policy is that because
on one hand, US is supporting war in Ukraine, and on the other hand, they are also going to be doing the same regarding Greenland.
But actually, this is not a policy of Trump that he is going to support the Ukraine war. When he was just took, during his electoral campaign, his whole campaign is to avoid the war. If there is a war between other countries, why America is the part of this war?
Yeah, let me bring in Mr. G.R. Baluch on this. Mr. G.R. Baluch, your take on this.
See, now we are like micro-analyzing his approaches and policies. I think at this point of time, we have to look at the bigger picture. He is a non-traditional leader, number one. Number two, his basic idea is to kind of, at least on the face of it, to deliver to his constituency who have given him the mandate. The mandate was on what? Protected borders, that is immigration. So I think we'll see a lot of action, if at all there would be an action. They have said it in the second day of his inauguration, that is 21st. There'll be a big operation which will take place in Chicago, and he says that it will be one of the biggest deportation in the history of the U.S. One. Second, his objective is to get out of the unfavorable deals which he deems to be unfavorable to the U.S., which includes their contribution to NATO or trade, NAFTA in case of Canada, or in case of trade deficit with China. So I think he will deliver on that, perhaps, apparently. So this is the apparent, and as far as the wars are concerned, yes, he probably may not be going for wars as we have seen in the history of the US, at least the current history, except for President Bush. The rest of the wars were actually waged by the democratic leaders. So if he is able to deliver on his promise to end the wars in the world, that should be really welcome, irrespective of one agrees with his approach to the politics or not. Yeah.
Right. And Mr. G.R. Baluch, let's talk about economic policies of Donald Trump and how they are going to be impacting US and its ties with other countries and of course the global economy. In your opinion, what are going to be the long-term impacts of the tariffs that Donald Trump is, of course, planning to impose?
Yeah, there's a little bit of contradiction in his rhetoric and what can he do or what he does. The very fact that he's supported by uh, the, as I said earlier, the techno barons or the multi-millionaires and trillionaires of the US, but they have not become millionaires and trillionaires by just doing their business in the US. They were the biggest beneficiaries of the globalization. Now he stands for anti-globalization. So here is a contradiction that if he wants to just concentrate on the US, then the objective of those multimillionaires will not be served. So I think he has to then probably balance between keeping the global economy as it is interdependent or completely divorce US economy. I doubt very much, because the supply chains, the interdependencies are so exhaustive vertically and horizontally all over the globe that it will be difficult for him to, in 4 years' time, divorce the entire economy of the US from the global economy. Yes, he will squeeze China. So I tell you what, there's one thing more which I don't know what other analysts they say, but I think hidden behind this nationalist economic agenda is a nationalist political agenda. He wants to make sure that US remains the prime global power, politically speaking, diplomatically speaking, militarily speaking. Yes, he will use his economic muscle, he will use his hard bargaining style for taking concessions first, ostensibly for the economic gains, and of course the technological. We must not forget that he was the one who started all the sanctions on China and on the semiconductors and all other technology that China,
Right.
according to him, was taking away. So I think we'll see continuation of those policies, but still I believe that he cannot reverse the cycle of globalization, which has gone pretty far in terms of creating an interdependent world. Yes, Maria.
Right, right. Let me take Dr. Shazia's take on this. Dr. Shazia, what's your opinion on economic policies of Donald Trump, and especially when we talk about these tariffs, how this is going to be impacting US manufacturing and consumer prices in the local markets? And also, like Mr. G.R. Baluch mentioned about his first term, what lessons do you think Donald Trump is going to be learning from his first term, or can learn from his first term in regards to economic policies?
He can learn, the first lesson is not to trust the deep state or the blob, and the second lesson he can learn that not to put tariffs on China. So he has learned the first lesson, as we can feel in the ambience, but so far the second lesson is concerned. I agree with Mr. Baluch that it could be for the domestic consumption, and he himself, being a businessman, cannot avoid this or cannot neglect this this idea that this is not possible to wage a tariff war against China and then survive domestically and then retain his own constituency. It's very difficult for him. He cannot keep a balance between all these things. So it's just for domestic consumption, because he needs something to say in public, and which has to be, as keeping his personality in mind, it has to be very loud, and it has to be very manly, and it has to be very masculine. So he cannot say like his predecessors that he is going to wage another war for the liberal democracy and for the greater good of humanity and for the new world order. So he cannot say that, because that's not part of his mandate. So what else he can say? So he can wage tariff wars. So but the reality is, we have to keep the reality in mind, and the ground reality for America right now is that Its economy is shattering. They are just printing money. Their debt is like ever high in the history of America, and that's why they want to divorce NATO, and they just want to ignore EU for the moment. They want to, they are not ready to take responsibility for Ukraine war, and they have tried to somehow cooked up something in Middle East for the time being to arrange some kind of temporary ceasefire. So he and his personality is just to portray and manifest that he is going to be the greatest leader of American history ever, and that's why, like his ceasefire deal, he make this sure that he, as just like as Reagan, has to bring back his hostage before his inauguration, and he just managed that, and we don't know what he gave in return to that, because we know that he's an arch Zionist, and we cannot forget that. Like at overnight speed, he cannot be a Palestinian sympathizer. So I totally agree with Mr. Baluch that the situation is very cloudy and it's very misty. We cannot come up like to certain conclusion, because again, this in Europe and Americas are in state of chaos, and entire world is burning in in hellfire. Majority of the world in conflicts, in wars. So we cannot jump onto some conclusions, because he has to say certain things, then he has to manage certain things. So he has so many things to do and to manage, and to, above all, he has to manage his defeat, America's defeat against Ukraine. So I totally
Right.
agree that.
Right, and Dr. Baqir, when we talk about all these aspects, we cannot, of course, forget about one of the important aspects of his foreign policy is to expanding Abraham Accords. What, in your opinion, are going to be its implications?
I think according to this, what I believe that he will try to convince the other Muslim country to recognize
And that
Israel as
includes
a-
Saudi Arabia and
Actually,
Pakistan is
this
also?
yeah, maybe possible, and that's where, before taking his oath, you have seen that Israel is a fully this agree on a ceasefire like this, on what terms and condition, what he offered Trump to this Israel like this. I think he will continue his policy during as what he was doing during his first presidential term. So what I believe that maybe America and maybe Trump will use some pressurized tactics to the Pakistan to recognize Israel as an independent state like this. So if not a Pakistan, but maybe the some other Arab country, maybe they will
Like they were
recognize
engaging
that,
with Saudi as well.
and he has also a very hard stance against Iran. So he's a fully supporter of the Israel like this. So maybe he will try to settle the relation between Israel and Iran like this. So I believe that during this his presidency, his period, he may extend the Abraham Accord and will try to convince the maximum Arab country or a Muslim country to recognize Israel as like this. But on the other side, his policy is just not like to engage the America
Right,
direct
but
conflict with other
before
countries.
we move forward, I'd like to take Mr. Jiar's Baluch's take on your opinion. Mr. Jiar Baluch, what's your take on Dr. Baqir's, of course, opinion? And also, how can Pakistan strategically place itself against Trump's potential aggressive policy towards Pakistan?
No, you see, I have been actually discussing this, that what we should do. I think that's the question. Now we know what he stands for, one. But at the same time, there are some constants for any state, maybe Pakistan, maybe in a smaller state, and the US. So those constants are where we converge. Pakistan and the US is like still there is a danger of terrorism. There's still a danger of terrorism actually emanating from Afghanistan, as we see. And whether it was Trump had lost or he's now won, this very convergence would not change. That is what I mean is the constant. Constant number two, which is there, that in South Asia, Southwest Asia, Pakistan is a nuclear state. It has its own weight, strategic weight, and its own importance that any US president cannot wish away. Likewise, Pakistan is a country of 240 million people that they cannot wish away. Pakistan's location is yet another constant which they cannot wish away, that we are a linchpin between Central Asia, South Asia, and West Asia. So these are all those constants on which I think we'll have to play, and that is where our diplomatic finesse comes, that how we use our advantages to even negotiate with a hard bargainer like Trump. So I don't think we have any ill will against him. I mean, I see a lot of this kind of impact of the mainstream media of the US, which was kind of anti-Trump. So I think, but we have to be very careful now to not be influenced by those, but have our own objective and independent assessment of him. And I think Pakistan's foreign policy, which is handled by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have one of the best minds, and they would understand it. I'm pretty sure that we will hopefully be able to deal with America under Trump. There are still convergencies, as I mentioned earlier. We should build on those convergences of opinion and stances, and not let the media or other distractions come in the way of Pakistan-US relations. Yes, ma'am.
Right. And Dr. Baqir, when we talk about, of course, this specific region, we know that Trump is going to be doubling down on his Indo-Pacific strategy. How do you think Pakistan can align its own policies for its own interest with regards to Pakistan-US relations and, of course, strengthening those ties during this term?
Yes, as ambassador is saying that Pakistan is strategically a very important position. We are a nuclear power like this. But you should remember that Pakistan is basically not in a position to accept, or you can say this kind of pressure from the America like this. We are not in a position like this. So for this, I think Pakistan, to protect its national interest like this, we have seen Pakistan is intentionally or unintentionally is basically not playing its card properly to you can say utilize its strategic position or its nuclear power position in the world like this. Pakistan on the one side, you know, Pakistan is a very close with China like this, and to American policy, the containment of this China or to countering the China influence in this region is basically, that's why America is fully supporting to the India and like this. So I think for Pakistan should use its card properly in a balanced approach.
But
it will not destroy the relation with the China and even also maintain a good relation with the America. So Pakistan foreign policy or foreign ministry, its job is to basically make a balanced approach, that it's not that on a one-sided approach, that on one side you want to make a happy to the China or want to make the happy to the America like this. So you need to have a balanced approach like that. For example, if you study the Indian foreign policy, we have seen they have a very balanced approach like that.
Right, and Pakistan is also, of course, going towards a very balanced approach when it comes to, of course, its relations with China as well as to US. At the same time, we cannot forget that Trump is going to be interested in Pakistan because of Afghanistan and the terrorism threat that is emanating from Afghanistan at this point in time, that is not only threatening South Asia, but ISIS-K is going to be threat to the globe as well. So how do you think Pakistan can leverage its position as a close neighbor to Afghanistan in terms of counter-terrorism strategies?
Because his policy is strengthen the American security, American sovereignty is a top priority of the Trump policy. So even Trump know that when America withdraw from the Afghanistan, the role of Pakistan was a very important like that. So regarding this ISSI or Afghanistan, a terrorism issue, Pakistan is busy to fight against the terrorism from last 2 decades. And secondly, the long border with Afghanistan is like that. It's maybe the Trump policy towards Pakistan is that how to basically counter the terrorism, or how we can make a common strategy or a coalition to fight against terrorism or ISSI network, particularly when there is a Syrian crisis like this. So ISSI role become very important, and Trump will, I don't think so Trump will ignore the role of the ISSI in international terrorism or Afghanistan region, or he will ignore like this. But his, his personality is not to directly engage to the other country, but he just say that, okay, this is a part of the Pakistan, that how can stop the cross terrorism, or how we can handle the issue of the Taliban, or how we can make the Afghanistan as a secure land like this. And Pakistan role is a very important, because Pakistan forces or Pakistan security forces have a long experience to fight against the terrorism, even it's a domestic terrorism or it's a international terrorism.
Right.
So Pakistani forces are well trained to handle this kind of issue like this.
Right,
So I
right.
think for this Pakistan will be very important for the Trump. It's how to counter the
But
terrorism.
we
how
have to
control
see in
like
coming
this.
days how these ties are going to be evolving in Trump's second presidency. But Dr. Shazia, when we talk about a ceasefire in Middle East, we know that Trump has taken credit for it, but the issue still, a lot of issues still persist in the region. How do you think these issues are going to be playing out in coming days?
That deal which has been proposed, it is the same deal which has been shown us by the Biden administration in last spring. But
Yeah.
at the same time, Biden administration claimed that this is the deal which is proposed by Israel, and it is going to be agreed between both the parties. But now we know that this is the same deal, and America drafted that deal, and this is the same deal which is just by one phone call from Qatar, by the aid from Trump, it has been agreed upon. But again, it is a phase deal based on 4 or 5 phases. So in first phase, it has not yet decided that all the prisoner exchange will happen, or it will be some prisoners in exchange of some prisoners, like 10 versus 10, 20 versus 20. So this is still need to be negotiated. And even before that, this deal has not yet presented to the Knesset in Israel. So again, we don't know, like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, how they are going to react. Either they are going to leave Netanyahu's coalition and putting him in a position where his government will go away, or whether or not they will stay with him. So it is a phase deal. Basically, nothing has been decided yet. The only positive thing is that the bloodshed and the killing has been stopped for a couple of days. So that's the only sigh of relief we can feel right now.
Right.
Other than that, it has nothing substantial in it. And we also keep in mind that I totally agree with other colleagues who are of the view that Trump wants to have this Abraham Accord revived, but after September attack by the Hamas, I don't think it is that easy for the Gulf states or the Khalij to go for the Abraham Accord, to normalize relationship. And so
Especially October 7, right. Right, right. Let me go to Mr. Dr. Baluch. We are, of course, short of time. Your last, of course, input on Trump's, of course, second term. with his uncertain personality, what kind of policies should Pakistan go for to adapt itself to safeguard its own economic and, of course, strategic interests?
I think, first of all, borrowing his own term, if there is America first, we should always have Pakistan first. That should be, I think, our guiding principle. Second, I think, as I mentioned, several constants or several strengths which are unchangeable, immutable as far as Pakistan is concerned as a state. So I think we should try and leverage those constants, those strengths that we have. Then we should also see that if he's transactional, we should also learn to have a transactional foreign policy where there should be a pragmatic, practical, and doable quid pro quo. If there is something to be taken from America, we must, if they're to be taken away from Pakistan, has to be then equal with some other gesture from the US. So I think it may be a good idea that we don't have to now fight others' wars. We should just concentrate on economy. We should concentrate on our exports. We should concentrate on our internal security and try to remain a balanced actor in the international arena. Yes, Maria.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Baluch, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Shazia Chema, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Baqir Malik, for joining us in today's program. That's all from tonight's discussion. Thank you for joining.